empowers its students to shape the future of creative industry and making it truly unique. What sets Media Design School apart is its relentless dedication to preparing students for the real world. In an era of rapid digital transformation, the school equips its graduates with essential tools, resilience, and adaptability needed to thrive in a fiercely competitive industry. By providing cutting-edge design software, Media Design School goes above and beyond to ensure that its students not only earn a degree, but also possesses the skill to leave a lasting mark on the world. Without further ado, allow me to introduce our esteemed guest for today, Dr. Sarah Becker. She serves as a program coordinator and head of research at Media Design School. Boasting 15 years of teaching and research experience in design and cultural studies, Dr. Baker's research expertise lies in design methodology, including UX design, critical design and ethics, system in thinking, and speculative future. We extend a warm welcome to you, Sarah. We are delighted to have you as a guest of this webinar. To all attendees,
Sorry, that's wonderful. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. To all the attendees, please start typing in the question in the chat box. We'll answer your question at the end of the webinar. Over to you, Sarah.
Great, thank you. Thanks for such a wonderful introduction to both Media Design School and to myself. So yeah, I'm in Auckland now, it's the evening, so I've got two small kids, so you might hear them sometimes, but hopefully not too loud. I'm just gonna share my slides with you. Go. And there we go. So I'm going to talk about the postgraduate program that we have, Postgraduate Design at Media Design School. And so the program that I coordinate has 3 different courses: a Master of Design, a Postgraduate Diploma, and a Postgraduate Certificate. So the Master of Design is 30 weeks. And it's 2 level 8 courses and 2 level 9 courses. So the level 9 course is essentially a individual project of the students choosing. At Postgraduate Diploma, it's 4 level 8 courses, and Postgraduate Certificate is 2 level 8 courses. So what you'll see below with the months are the courses that we teach throughout the year. I'll probably come back to these. I'm going to talk a bit more about the kind of general, I guess the general theme, or what we cover in postgraduate design, and what makes us unique from other universities in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So we teach postgraduate design as a transdisciplinary design program. And what that means is we have students from a range of different design disciplines. So that includes user experience design, it includes graphic design, animation, visual effects, even some more kind of creative tech. So we've had people who have backgrounds more in, say, for instance, more on the kind of IT side, but want to learn about design. We've also had some students who have kind of slightly more diverse backgrounds. So perhaps they have an undergraduate degree in something like anthropology, but they have worked in design, so they have a portfolio. So the way we teach, and you saw there are quite a few different courses, and all courses are 8 weeks long. So they're quite short compared to other universities. We basically mimic industry practice. So we use design sprints, we use agile methods. And what that means is each of those components we're working to a brief, often an industry brief. So at the moment and I'm going to talk a bit more about those industry briefs. Some are with more locally based, so based in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Some are more kind of global brands, and I'll talk a bit about that. One of the things that really distinguishes the program is that it's taught at the weekend. What that means for our domestic students and the international students that study with us is that often, I mean, I would say all students work as well as study. Often because they have design experience, many of them work freelance or find work, kind of part-time work in studios while they're in New Zealand. There are also multiple entry points, and I mean by that you don't necessarily have to have an undergraduate degree if you have more than 6 years industry experience in design, and that you'd have to demonstrate that through your CV and through your portfolio that you submit. But there is a possibility to be accepted on the course if you have lots of industry experience. One of the other kind of very unique things is that on the postgraduate design program, what the students are learning is they're responding to briefs, they're developing like an industry standard, very up-to-date portfolio. So we're exploring emerging technologies and their impact on design. We're exploring different processes for creative thinking and innovation. But what we're not doing is we're not teaching technical skills. But the really unique thing about the program is these students are able to audit the undergraduate classes. So at Media Design School, we teach visual effects, advertising, media design, and that includes motion, interactive, and graphic design. What have I missed? We also teach games. So for instance, say someone comes in as they have a background in graphic design, they want to get a master's, but at the same time they're thinking, oh, some of my skills might be really relevant to games. It means that they, for free or the same costs as they will pay for the postgraduate design course, they could sit in on undergraduate classes in games and learn alongside when they're studying for postgrad. So we have lots of students who take up that opportunity, because what it allows you to do, say for instance, we have a student at the moment who's been working in visual effects for quite a long time, but he's very interested in starting to move into games. So now he's sitting in on undergraduate classes so he can make that shift. We have other students who worked as a graphic designer and want to get into motion design. There's a lot of jobs in motion design in New Zealand at the moment. So that's a kind of area that people are wanting to shift to or move to. And I think really that's a product of people thinking about the metaverse or this kind of movement into 3D virtual worlds, so VR, AR. And in that, you start to see things like motion design and 3D and visual effects become really important as we move into that kind of technological future. So this on the right hand side, what you can see here is just a quote about the course itself. So while the Master of Design is located within design, it's specifically structured to facilitate a dynamic engagement across disciplines, including designers, developers, technologists, programmers, and artists. It's a collaborative environment that explores the convergent spaces between disciplines. And so we mimic a studio in the way that we work at the weekends. So we will get a live brief, we'll work together in terms of identifying problems and ideation and those sorts of things. All the student work is submitted individually, but along the way we're working as a studio would. Oh, sorry about that. Here we go. So the teaching team at the moment, so we try and reflect the kind of the philosophy, I suppose, of the program is reflected in the teaching team. So we all have different backgrounds and experience. So there's me, and my background, as Zainab mentioned, is in research, design research, but also user experience design. So that's kind of really my focus: human-centered methods, user experience design, and design research. Recently, we've recruited a senior industry fellow, Andy Blood, and he has more than 20 or 30 years experience in creative advertising. He's also, before he moved to MDS, he was working at Facebook as a creative director. So he has lots of industry contacts. And the reason that we recruited Andy was to really maintain our strength in terms of our contact with industry. And already Andy's been getting some really amazing briefs. So the students had an opportunity to get training from a team at TikTok that came to the campus. There's likely to be another brief this year, which I can't talk about, but it's another big brand. It's a shame I can't talk about it, but hey. So we're really starting to see this kind of a growth in terms of our industry links, particularly in terms of global brands. The other person here, Simon, he's a lecturer on the Bachelor of Media Design. He also teaches on the postgraduate program. Simon has a background in interactive design and graphic design. I'd say Simon's also quite more technical than me, I'd say. He is very interested in AI, and his most recent research really experiments with AI in a creative way. That's also the case with Sean. Sean teaches visual effects on the undergraduate program and also teaches on the postgrad program. Sean is really amazing. He's really interested in design futures and the future of creative technologies. So he always says anything's possible. If you ask him, can we do this? He's like, yeah, of course. Anything's possible. But he's a wealth of knowledge in terms of what the future holds in terms of design and creative tech. So that's us. I'm just going to go through some of the student work, and I think it's really just to give you, obviously there's a lot more student work than I can show, but it's really to give you a flavour of the range of work that that students are involved in, and each of these pieces is responding to a specific brief. So this first piece of work is by Ashley. She what we were thinking about in this brief is really what design will become in terms of the impact of AI. And so, for instance, when AI can design a logo, what happens to the role of the designer, and how will that change in the future? So Ashley came up with essentially like a new kind of method, which is beyond human-centered, a framework for design feeling. So she's thinking about, okay, what is a designer if we kind of take away some of that thinking work that AI can do? And she says that embracing a design feeling mindset is to purposely integrate your own personal experiences, value, emotion, and creative vision into your work. So then her project became about this method and how it might be implemented in different kind of other design projects. So that's more a kind of design research methodological, bit more theory focused project. This project is by Gary. We had a brief around how we might design an experience to get users to think about climate change. And this is, Gary is a graphic designer, you can probably tell it's like much more of a graphic response. And he designed a whole experience for people, as well as a social campaign to get people to think about Earth Overshoot Day. So essentially, and I can't remember the exact date, we have already reached the point where we have excess carbon emissions. So these graphics, and he used a graphic to visualize that over time. So what you see in this kind of atmosphere is how much we've overshot the day when we had like my language is not so good. He says we're borrowing against the future. So essentially we've already overshot our maximum carbon emissions, so we need to cut down. And he created this whole event, which was amazing, to explore that with visitors potentially. So we have a range of kind of more globally focused projects. So the climate change one is a kind of example of that, but also slightly more localized ones. And this is a project by Josh, and what he was thinking about was how, so in Aotearoa, New Zealand, Māori Indigenous, lots of people are wanting to learn Te Reo Māori, so the language that's Indigenous to New Zealand. And but because of colonization, lots of Māori can't speak Te Reo Māori. But what Josh found through his research was that men especially were very apprehensive about going back into education to do that traditional education because of bad experiences in the past. So he did a lot of research and decided to create a plugin for Facebook Messenger that takes away the pressure and stress of learning today. So you can talk to relatable characters in your own time and learn how to speak the language in the same way that you chat to their friends. So in the first instance, they would talk to you in Tadeo Māori and give you the English translation. But as you got better at replying, then they'd start to take away the translation. But it's meant to be a kind of more informal way of learning, taking the experience away from the classroom where people might feel shame and embarrassment about making mistakes. Oh, sorry. This is the last project I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to talk about some of our alumni. This is a project, a really recent project by David, and again we're thinking about AI here. David has he has a kind of strong visual effects background and illustration background, but also he has a really strong interest in psychology. And when he was they had a brief, the students, which was part of creative entrepreneurship, where they had to come up with their own business essentially and pitch it to some investors, a bit like Shark Tank. And they were all super nervous at that prospect. So David created Diffusion. And what it is a suite of mobile tools that help people distance themselves from their own kind of limiting thoughts and habits. And it's based on lots and lots of research that he did. So desk research, secondary research, but then also research with counsellors and psychiatrists. So the idea of this tool is that the first kind of phase is that the user would have a diary and they'd write down their thoughts, and then using ChatGPT and Midjourney, using those tools, those thoughts would be visualized, and then they'd be returned to the user's journey, to the user's journal. So over time and at a glance, people would be able to visualize or see their thoughts in their journal, and that kind of progress over time. And one of the things that emerged from his research was that that's a very useful tool in terms of mental health, like being able to visualize how you're feeling and see that kind of outside yourself is really important. So we had 2 investors that they pitched to, and both investors were very interested in this idea and potentially in terms of its future development. They also saw a market for it, which is really wonderful. It's kind of up to David now what he does with that, but in terms of feedback from industry, it was really, really great for him. So in terms of alumni, I'm just going to talk about 3 alumni, and they, in a way, they represent, I guess, the kind of journey that people go on in slightly different ways. So Alex is an alumni. He's a senior XR developer. He came in having quite a bit of experience in VR AR. What the process of the master's program did for him is really helped him identify his specific niche in VR AR. And one of the things that he focused on was around access and multi-sensory design. So for example, he was looking at using, and this is what this image is from, AR VR with haptics, so with feeling, AR VR for partially sighted people, how we might kind of enable people to access the same experiences as able-bodied people. So it really focused and concentrated his vision of what his strength was and what he wanted to do. For Jack, he got a graphic design job at Deadly Ponies, which is I think, I don't know if it's famous outside of New Zealand, maybe not, but it's quite in New Zealand, it's quite a famous fashion brand. Jack is a graphic designer there. He also does UX for them. I think for Jack, it was really about him recognizing, like, he was a graphic designer before he started the course, but also it was about making his portfolio really strong, which enabled him to get this really great job. And also, I think he found his kind of passion for fashion and kind of trends. Like, that was one of the things he was really good at in terms of graphic design, like focusing on font in particular, and also image and kind of the future of those things, or identifying trends. One of the other outcomes that we've seen for people, and this is Annie, who after she graduated, she created her own business and started her own business. So we've, from a number of graduates have had that trajectory, because the postgraduate program gives you time to think about what you might want to do, but also it gives you access to industry people. So in Annie's case, and in the students this year, they've had the chance to pitch to an angel investor and test out their ideas. So essentially, when they graduate, they pretty much will have something ready to go. It's not they won't have the money yet, the investment yet, but and maybe not all the business kind of plan, but they'll have a really good start. I'm going to talk through a couple of international students now. So Zainab, did you want to say something? Sorry. No? Okay, so Pratici was such a wonderful student. I really loved teaching her. And so she joined the postgraduate diploma. She had experience in UX UI before she started the course. But for Pratici, what was, I think, really useful for her, and this is what she said to me after after she graduated, was that it gave her a portfolio that was relevant to the New Zealand context. And for Pratici, that was really important because she wanted to work in New Zealand. So I guess it's not just relevant to the New Zealand context in the sense that when we've focused on a brief related to COVID-19, and that shows a kind of timeliness, good contextual knowledge of what's going on, the ability to kind of adapt to those situations as well and think about design in that context. And she mentioned that recruiters really appreciated that work. So I think in terms of Pratici, not only did the postgraduate diploma enable her to get a job in New Zealand as a UX UI designer, it also kind of her promotion to senior UX UI designer was very fast. And I think a master's or postgraduate education can really help with that kind of promotion. Another international student we had as Karen. Karen also is a UX UI designer. It's actually quite interesting that both of these examples are within UX UI. And we still have, and we have had lots of jobs in New Zealand within UX and UI. So it's probably telling as well that these international students are going into those fields. Karen now works for Encigo Corp. She's a multidisciplinary designer. One of the things that was really useful for Karen, and this is a quote from the client, so it's slightly different rather than from Karen. So we presented our ideas. It's a budgeting service and a food bank, a relatively local one to the school. And they had some issues in particular around people not wanting to use the budgeting service and food bank even when they needed to, because of it works it's located in a small community and people were worried about being seen to use it. So Karen came up with a really creative way of addressing that. And the client said, Karen had much to offer our organisation, and I was incredibly impressed at how well she listened and really heard what we talked about. Her design response was truly reflective of our fundamental values and objectives. And that's one of the things that we're really keen to teach in terms of really collaborating with and listening to clients, and I guess delivering what they need, but more than that. So giving them more than they expect. And I think that's what Karen did really successfully, and it really helped in terms of developing her portfolio for Aotearoa New Zealand, but also giving her a greater range of skills. So the things that she mentions here, such as empathy mapping, user stories, user journeys, wireframing, branding, prototyping, user testing, are all things that we do on postgraduate design. She might have had some experience of those before, but we definitely focused on all of those throughout her journey. So in terms of brands, these are the industry partners that we've been working with this year, and we use industry in a very loose sense. So you'll see there's a marae here, which is a Māori meeting house, and the brief that it's the day after tomorrow, we're going to get the client briefing from the committee who run the marae, because they only have a very basic website. They want to engage with their community more. And we're going to go and explore their the brief is going to come from them, and we're going to go and talk about their challenges and the opportunities they see. So the industry is very kind of loose. So on the one hand, we have these kind of very local projects, and on the other, the students get the experience to work and get trained by TikTok, at least this year. Maybe not, it will be equivalent next year. The Ice House is an investor brand, and that's who the students pitched to for their Shark Tank. They also had advice from the CEO of No Ugly, which is a brand, like a health drink brand. They probably wouldn't, I don't know how they explain it, but something like that. Health and wellbeing drinks. I think they're in Australia, the US, and New Zealand at the moment. But they have really great branding, and the CEO has worked in advertising previously and branding. So he came in and gave the students some advice. So that's so far. The next brief, or the brief that's going to be in early October, actually, the next live brief, that's the one I can't put on here quite yet because we're not supposed to tell anyone. But it'll be in there soon. So throughout the year, as you can see, there's lots of engagement with different industry partners and also design studios. So what's not included, these are where the essentially the students present to, or the briefs are from. We also have other designers come in and give the students kind of critique on their work throughout the year. This is an image of the students doing their angel investor pitches. I just thought I'd put that in because you can kind of see how nervous they are, but also how professional they were. This is Gary here. He even had a prototype to show the angel investors. So yeah, it was a really, really great day. Oh, and that's me. I don't know. Hopefully you have. I'm sure you have lots of questions. Or if you want me to go over anything in more detail, I can.
No, nothing as such. I mean, it was a lovely presentation. I will just see if we have any other questions in the chat. Yeah, we have one. Hello, I have completed BCA in 2020 and scored 52%. I have 1.5 years of work experience as a UX UI designer, and I also have a 6-month certificate course in graphic design and eligible to apply. Am I eligible to apply at MDS? Also, will I be eligible for scholarship? Thanks.
Great. I think I think you would be eligible to apply. The main area, there's a lots of different documents that you have to submit in order to apply. The two things that I look at, that I focus most on, are your portfolio and also your letter of intent. So because you've attended this session, which is awesome, you have an understanding of what the course is and our approach. And so what I'm looking at for in that letter of intent is to really see that you understand the course and you have a sense of what it will give you, like why you want to study and where you want to go, essentially. In terms of your portfolio, obviously we'd like to see the UX UI work that you've been doing. Also, what's really helpful in those portfolios, if you have some contextualization there, sometimes we get portfolios just with images, and it's tricky then to know, okay, who was the client, what was the context, did you produce the whole thing yourself, or did you produce an element of it, or were you involved in a team, or those sorts of things. So I always it's really helpful for me if there's contextualization in terms of the portfolio. So usually that happens through a little bit of writing alongside the wonderful design work that you've done. In terms of scholarships, there are some international scholarships. That's something that Sabrina, who's on the call as well, will know a little bit more about than me. But I think all international students are eligible for for scholarships. Obviously they're competitive, but I think all internationals are eligible.
Okay. There are a few questions which generally we get by the students. So few are like, how are the job prospects for the student graduating from media design school?
Yeah, in New Zealand,
yes,
you would say, yeah, I'm pretty good because we've been connecting with industry alongside studying. That really helps. So it means, for instance, say Ashley, who's in this picture, after she presented to the angel investors, actually she didn't pitch for money for investment, she asked for time. And subsequently, Andy, who's in the white t-shirt in this picture, has introduced her to a few people, I think 3 or 4 people now who she's had coffee with and spoken to, and they've just kind of given their, talked to her, given her some advice, and given her some feedback. And I think because there's alongside studying, you also get some of these contacts. If you use them. So if you say, I'd really like to talk to you more about this, then most industry guests or speakers that we have are really willing to do that. So I think the prospects after graduating are pretty good. As I was saying earlier, there used to be, well, there still is pretty strong amount of jobs in UX UI. There's also quite a lot of work in co-design at the moment, so designing with communities, and that's something that you will cover on the course. There's also quite a lot of work in terms of motion and visual effects. So even though New Zealand's a relatively small country, there are quite a lot of design jobs, which is really great, and most of them are in Auckland, where we're located.
Okay. What's the minimum pay scale one can expect after a successful course?
That's a difficult question. That one is harder because it really depends what industry you're in. I think if you say, for instance, you go for a government job, it's probably a different sort of work, but maybe you're paid a little bit less. Whereas if you went for a corporation like UX UI and a big brand, then of course it's going to be more. I would say and it's not something I know so well. We have had international students, particularly from India as well, go back to India, and the thing that happens then, or tends to happen, is that it's good in terms of getting promoted or the kind of the next level in your career, essentially. So we focus quite a lot on design strategy, and when you want to move up in design, that's kind of one of the areas around creativity and design strategy that you really need to show competency in those areas. So I'd say No, I don't really know the figures, but but if you want to move up beyond kind of the technical, then this course is really good in terms of doing that.
Great. Does the school have any industry tie-ups? If so, please.
Yeah, so there are lots, but they're not, they change. So over time, so we each year, we tend to have different kind of different tie-ins, I suppose. This year, the TikTok one was available for students in a number of programs. So postgrad design students, creative advertising students, I think a couple of people from media design attended, and we're hoping to do that a bit more. So so that it can be a cross program. So TikTok is a good example of that, really. Games industry has lots of industry contacts. All the undergraduate programs have industry contacts too, so we kind of utilize them as well. But yeah, the whole rather than kind of one connection, we like to foster lots of different connections.
Okay, great. All the information what I wanted was cleared by you. So with this, we've come to an end to this session.
Okay,
we hope you found our talk useful. Thank you, Sarah, for your valuable time and information. It was a pleasure to have you today.
Thank you. Thanks so much. It was really great to meet you, and yeah, bye everyone.
Yeah, if you enjoyed our session and would want to contact us, please note our email ID info@ajvglobal.com. Our global contact center number is 7291 839 839. Thank you and have a great day ahead.